Ever heard of a place where nightmares gallop through the misty woods? A place haunted by a ghost so terrifying, its very name sends a shiver down your spine. Welcome, my friends, to the tale of Sleepy Hollow and its most famous resident, the Headless Horseman. Our story takes us back to the late 1700s, to a quiet Dutch settlement nestled along the Hudson River in New York. This little pocket of the world, known as Sleepy Hollow, was a place steeped in drowsy, dreamy atmospheres and spooky local folklore. The air itself seemed thick with ghost stories and strange superstitions, and the most chilling of all these tales was that of the Headless Horseman. Legend said he was the ghost of a Hessian soldier whose head was blown off by a cannonball during the Revolutionary War. Now every night he gallops forth from the churchyard where he was buried, forever searching for his lost head. He rides with furious speed, a phantom on a powerful black steed, a true spectre of the battlefield. Into this haunted glen arrives a most peculiar man, Ichabod Crane. Ichabod wasn't your typical hero, far from it. He was a lanky, gangly schoolmaster from Connecticut with huge ears, big green eyes, and a long, pointy nose. He looked a bit like a scarecrow that had wandered away from its cornfield. But what Ichabod lacked in looks, he made up for in appetite and ambition. He was a man with a hearty love for food, especially the rich feasts laid out on the tables of the local Dutch farmers. And he had a particular fondness for ghost stories. He would spend his evenings by the fire, trading terrifying tales with the old Dutch wives, filling his head with images of ghouls and goblins, completely unaware that he was about to star in a ghost story of his own. Now, Ichabod's primary goal wasn't just to teach the children of Sleepy Hollow their ABCs. He had his eyes on a much grander prize, the beautiful Katrina van Tassel. Katrina was the only daughter of a wealthy farmer, Baltus van Tassel. She was known throughout the valley for her beauty, her charm, and most importantly, her father's vast and prosperous farm. For Ichabod, winning Katrina's heart meant winning a life of luxury, a life filled with endless feasts and no more worries. He imagined himself as the master of the Van Tassel estate, a land of plenty, and he set about trying to court the lovely Katrina with all his awkward charm. But Ichabod Crane wasn't the only one vying for Katrina's affection. He had a formidable rival in Abraham Van Brunt, better known around town as Brom Bones. Brom was the complete opposite of Ichabod. He was the town hero, broad-shouldered, and famous for his strength and skill on horseback. He was boisterous, fun-loving, and a notorious prankster, the leader of a rowdy gang of local lads. Brom was also in love with Katrina, and he was not about to let a lanky, superstitious schoolmaster from out of town steal her away. Whenever Ichabod tried to spend time with Katrina, Brom and his gang would find a way to play a trick on him, stopping up the chimney of the schoolhouse or turning everything in the classroom upside down. The rivalry between the brawny local and the brainy outsider was heating up, turning Sleepy Hollow into their personal battleground for Katrina's hand. The stage for our climax is set one crisp autumn evening. A grand party is being held at the Van Tassel farm. A harvest festival filled with music, dancing, and of course, an incredible amount of food. Ichabod, dressed in his finest, somewhat ill-fitting suit, arrives on a borrowed, old, and rather grumpy horse named Gunpowder. He's determined to win Katrina over tonight. He dances with her, feeling triumphant, convinced that he has finally outshone Brom Bones. As the party winds down, the guests gather around the fire, and the talk, as it always does in Sleepy Hollow, turns to ghost stories. Brom Bones, with a mischievous glint in his eye, tells a particularly vivid and frightening tale of his own recent encounter with the Headless Horseman, claiming he even raced the spectre and won. The stories fill Ichabod's already overactive imagination with terror. After the party, Ichabod stays behind, hoping for a private moment with Katrina to secure his victory. But something goes wrong. He leaves the Van Tassel farm looking dejected and crestfallen. We don't know what Katrina said to him, but it clearly wasn't what he wanted to hear. His dreams of wealth and marriage were shattered. Heartbroken and spooked by the evening's ghost stories, Ichabod mounts his old horse, Gunpowder, and begins his lonely journey home through the dark and silent woods. The path is darker and more menacing than ever before. Every rustle of leaves, every snap of a twig, makes him jump. His mind races, replaying all the terrifying tales he's heard. As he approaches a particularly eerie spot near the old church and graveyard, the very haunting ground of the Headless Horseman, his fears become reality. He sees a massive, dark figure on a powerful black horse, waiting silently in the shadows. The figure is imposing, but what makes Ichabod's blood run cold is that it appears to have no head on its shoulders. Instead, it seems to be carrying its head, or what looks like a head, on the pommel of its saddle. The chase begins. The Headless Horseman gallops after Ichabod with terrifying speed. Poor Ichabod, in a panic, kicks and whips old Gunpowder, trying to escape the relentless pursuer. He remembers the legend: the horseman cannot cross the bridge by the old church. If he can just make it to that bridge, he'll be safe. He rides for his life, the thundering hooves of the phantom's horse right behind him. The bridge is in sight. He urges Gunpowder on, a final desperate push. They clatter across the wooden planks. Ichabod dares to look back, thinking he is safe. But in that horrifying final moment, he sees the horseman rise in his stirrups and hurl his severed head directly at him. There's a sickening thud, and Ichabod Crane tumbles from his horse into the dust. And then, silence. The next morning, there was no sign of Ichabod Crane. They found his hat lying near the bridge. Beside it, they found the shattered remains of a pumpkin, but the schoolmaster himself was gone. Old Gunpowder was found calmly grazing at his master's gate, but Ichabod Crane was never seen in Sleepy Hollow again. What really happened to him? Did the Headless Horseman truly carry him away, or was it all just an elaborate prank? Some of the townspeople whispered that Brom Bones, who conveniently married Katrina shortly after, knew more than he let on. They noticed he'd always chuckle whenever the story of Ichabod and the pumpkin was mentioned. So, was the fearsome spectre just Brom in disguise, using the town's greatest fear to scare away his rival for good? The story never tells us for sure, leaving Ichabod's fate shrouded in mystery. And so, the legend of Sleepy Hollow lives on, a timeless American ghost story that blurs the line between superstition and reality, between the supernatural and a very human prank. It reminds us that sometimes the scariest things are not the ghosts in the dark, but the tricks our own imaginations can play on us. So, if you ever find yourself riding through a dark, lonely hollow late at night, listen closely for the sound of galloping hooves. You never know who or what might be just behind you. Thank you so much for joining me on this spooky journey into one of America's greatest folk tales. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, and don't forget to subscribe for more adventures into history and legend. We'll see you in the next video.